Hello Apex Servers viewers, welcome back to our sessions MuleSoft for Salesforce developers. This is our last session for developing APIs section, and so far we have covered basics of MuleSoft, basics of developing things. We will see what we will cover in the final part, but this would be the last session for developing APIs, and then we'll be probably having one or two more sessions so that we will complete all the sessions. Now, today's agenda is quickly we will go through the recap of our previous session, then we will go with for each component, then parallel for each, then batch processing. That would be the last session for developing APIs. So very quickly, the recap of our previous session, we have seen error handling. We have seen my 3 rules of error handling: on error propagate, on error continue, raise error, try and until successful scope. So please do hands-on. That's what I always say in all the sessions. Until and unless you don't do hands-on, you won't be able to understand the concepts. Now, coming back to our new component for each. So what is this for each component? Before going to what is for each, we will see what are the mandatory configuration details. Nothing is mandatory there. So by default, if you don't mention anything in the collections tab, there is a configuration tab for collection. It takes the payload as the collection by default, and the batch size equal to 1. Remember, for each, it is always the array or array of objects which will act as the input. Even if it is array of objects, it is basically at the end of the day it is an array, right? So for each, the input type is always array. Object alone is not acceptable, because for each itself means that for each record, okay, that means we will be having more than one record. More than one record is always an array, okay. For array of inputs, if we want to iterate over each record, we will use for each record, for each component, okay. This is the component how it looks, and some things to remember about for each, okay. The payload value, this is really important in terms of certification. Also, when you work on real-time projects, you will be surprised, hey, what is the payload that it is printing after for each component, right? So the payload value after for each loop or after for each connector is always the payload value that is present just before the for each. Got it? Just before the for each. Whatever is happening within for each, that payload will not be overridden. Okay, that is really important in terms of certification exam. Next, everything is a payload of single object once it enters the for each loop. Again, we will be seeing these things in the hands-on. It will be more understandable. Okay, once it enters, whatever payload you have, array of, for example, array of objects with name and ID. Okay, but once it enters into for each loop, everything is a single object there, because it is for each, right? Even though if your collection is like variable or payload, as for each iterates over every single record of the collection, the value is always the single object. That thing you have to remember. Next, input for each is payload by default. I have already shown in the previous slide, okay. If nothing is mentioned in the collection tab, and it should be array, okay. Next, you cannot keep empty for each loop. It will fail to deploy the application. That is common, right? Any connector, if you drag and drop, and if you're not configuring anything, by default it will not deploy your application. Next, this is really important again. If one of the record failed in the process, then for each loop will stop processing the rest of the records. For example, you have an array of 5 records, okay, and the first 2 records are processed successfully. Somehow third record it is failing due to various reasons. Then your fourth and fifth record will not be processed, okay. This is the behavior of for each by default without configuring anything. But if you still want fourth and fifth record to be processed, then what you have to do? This is what you need to do. You must put this everything in try and on error continue. Okay, your for each, whatever components you are keeping within for each, you have to keep it within try and on error continue. Then what it will do, according to our error handling process, in try block, what it will do, if every error occurs, it will consider as a success, and it will say okay, continue to the next one. We will see that in the hands-on. All right, and you can keep payload or variable in the collections tab, but it should definitely be an array. Okay, it's not necessary that you should always have a payload. You can always keep the variable as well. I will show that in the hands-on. For each runs on a single thread. For each record, it will run on a single thread, and only after first record is processed, then only it will go to the second record. That is for each behavior. Suppose you have 10 records. It's not like scatter gather which it will run parallelly. It is something like for each, it will run first the first record, next the second record, next the third record, something like that. All right. So let's see some hands on here. Get back to Anypoint Studio. Okay. So what I'll do is I will drag and drop a listener to test for each record. And please concentrate on this hands-on session, because I will tell few important things which are really important for certification point of view, as most of them will fail to answer them. Okay, so for example, now let me drag for each directly, because I want, or you can put transfer message, put just application JSON whatever is there, and keep whatever is the payload is coming from there. You can pay payload, or I will delete this. Very simple, I can keep set payload. Okay, because sometimes in certification they will ask in this way. Okay, set payload, I will keep the numbers, I will pass the input like 1 2 3 4 5. This is just the display name. I told you, right, in certification exam they won't give every configuration details because it is not possible. So in the display name, if you see like 1 2 3 4 5, that means this is the input for your payload. Okay, so for each there is a component called for each, it is a scope again. Okay, I told you, right, by default if you are not giving anything here, if you are not configuring anything, by default it will consider set payload. Okay, if you are trying to, you can also, like, it's always best practice to give payload. Even if you are not giving anything, it will consider as payload, but it is always good to write something. It's the best practice. Okay, payload. And you are saying like batch size as 1, which means if you have 10 records, it will iterate 1 each time. Okay, what it will happen for if you keep like 2, I will show you in the hands-on, but for now for each I am keeping. Now see what I am trying to do. I will keep set payload here. Okay, what I will try to do, I'll add payload plus 10, which means suppose I have 1 2 3 4 5. First time the payload 1 value 1 will be going inside, and it will add 10 to it, so it should become 11. Okay, and then what I will try to do, I will put logger here, put a logger here, and try to print the payload. I'll say like for each inside payload value is, and I will try to print payload. Then you can see what is the payload inside. Now at the end, what I will try to give, I will try to put another set payload, and whatever output you are getting, we'll see what it is printing. I will put a logger also again like here, because they will ask at this point of time what is the payload, at this point of time what is the payload in the certification exam. Okay, so I'm configuring things like this. Okay, I'm taking input as like I will pass input 1 2 3 4 5 like this. Okay, it will go each like each, and that will be an array. Okay, let me put like for each. Okay, that will be an array, and we will see how it will iterate over each record. By default I am keeping like payload here. Even if you are not keeping payload, that's fine, it will take by default as payload, but it is always best practice to take it. Now as usual, keep a debugger point here and try to debug your application, and let's see how it behaves. Please concentrate on this hands-on session. Even you can pause my session while listening to it, and you can do it parallelly from your Anypoint Studio, so that you will understand more. This is quite really important. You might get two to three questions for each. They will ask like at this point of logger what is the payload value, at this point of logger what is the payload value, something like that, and you should be able to answer even by looking at the flow itself. Okay, let's wait for this application to be deployed. Again, while it is getting deployed, I wanted to tell you guys that this is the last session for developing APIs. So our aim is, these sessions are for beginners, MuleSoft for Salesforce developers or MuleSoft for beginners. Our aim is to cover all the topics that a basic developer needs to understand, and we covered all the topics which are commonly used, or the connectors which are used in real-time projects frequently. Okay, and also all the connectors what we have discussed, it will be like covered in our certification exam as well. Okay, so but again, developing is like a vast topics. You have hundreds of connectors. All that you need is like a kickstart. So for that kickstart, these are the sessions, and if you are good with this hands-on and all with these sessions, then definitely you can crack MCD level 1, as well as you can do more for the advanced level. Yes, my application is deployed. Now let me pass only 5 records, 1 2 3 4 5. Again, this is array of records. Now I will send the request here. Okay, now you see, observe each and everything. Currently my payload is 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, now I am going to for each. I'm still outside of the for each. I didn't go inside. Now see, if I go inside, now my value, it is taking only the first value. Out of 1 2 3 4 5, only 1 is entering, because our batch size was 1, only one record is entering. Okay, 1. Now see, I am going to next component. Now the value is 11, because 1 plus 10 is 11. Okay, next logger, see what it is printing, the logger value. For each inside payload, value is 11. Now we are iterating each payload, right? Now the value is 2. Now it is 12, because 2 plus 10 is 12. Next, like that, how many records are there? Like 5 records, right? 13, 14, next 15. Okay, I'll wait here. All my 5 records are completed. What is the latest payload now? It is 15. What you will think is, the payload value, when it comes to here in the set payload, we are setting the latest payload value, correct? Whatever is there before, correct? Now whatever is there before is 15 right now, but this is within for each component. But once you come out of for each component, see the drama here. You are again getting 1 2 3 4 5. That is what I have mentioned in this particular slide. Where is that? The payload value, the very first point, the payload value after for each loop, which is like after for each loop, is always the payload value that is present just before the for each. Just before the for each payload was 1 2 3 4 5 your input. That's the reason here also you are getting 1 2 3 4 5. So in certification exam, they will give this dotted line over here, and they will ask what is the payload value. They will give 1 2 3 4 5, and you will think it is like iterating over like each record, and the latest value was 15, and in our options there will be option 15, right? You will answer 15. No, that is not the case. Whatever is there, whatever payload is overriding within for each, it stays within for each. Okay, but once it comes out of for each, the payload is always the payload that is there just before this for each loop. All right, so you are getting 1 2 3 4 5 here, and your output you are getting as 1 2 3 4 5, but not 11 12, but not 11 12 13 14 15. That is what we think. Okay, in your options, when they ask you what is the payload value here, they will give 1 2 3 4 5 15 11 12 13 14 15 and all. Okay, but the actual answer is 1 2 3 4 5, because the payload value after for each is always the payload value that is set just before the for each loop. And if you see the console, you can see payload value 11 12 13 14 15. All right, this is one thing. Then how to, if there is a case where we need to get the payload, we are doing some processing within here, right? How to store these values 11 12 13 14 15, and how to print them in set payload, correct? That is why the concept of variables comes into picture. So slowly you will understand what is the concept of set variable here. Okay, this is the reason we always use set variable. And see what I am doing. I will say like final payload. I will give the name as final payload values. See what I am doing. Every time, first initially I will keep empty. Okay, empty plus payload. All right, so this I can give final payload. Okay, before that what I can do is, again this is some advanced concept, but don't worry. First I will initialize the variable with empty array. Okay, I'll initialize the value with empty array. Okay, then I keep appending that values. So here vars dot, again final payload. Okay, plus payload. So if I am not sure about that, I can use data view language and see whether I have to use plus or single plus or double plus. What I am trying to do here is, if my initial value will be empty, okay, then if I add +1, okay, +2, something like this, it is appending. But if you keep plus plus, what will happen? It will have like 22 or something like that. Okay, so this is correct. So what I will do is vars dot final payload, which is always empty here first for the first value, then I keep appending the latest payload value that is coming from here. Okay, now my final payload value will be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then what you can do in your set payload, you can set the value to vars dot final payload. Okay, that way we can get the modified payload over here. You are setting the payload value with final payload. All right, so save it and see, observe the let it get redeployed and we will see how it works. Okay, my application gets started. So next, okay, it is not yet started, it is still starting. Okay, now my application is started. Send the request. Now observe the thing. So here set variable, by current set variable value final payload is size 0 because I am initializing with empty array. Now see, this is common again in for each. We are keeping the payload like by default it is payload, first value is 1. Okay, next, and we are trying to, what we are trying to do here, whatever value is there in final payload which is empty right now, plus you are appending that payload value. Current payload value is 11. Now you see currently like variable is like final payload is 0, right? Once we go to here, okay, I know the issue. I'll tell you, I'm not defining any output type, output application JSON dash dash dash. Okay, here you can keep and keep it, save it. Now you must have observed one more thing, like there was an error occurred here and it stopped processing the next records. I will show you that. Okay, again to how to generate that scenario. Let me, well, the mistake that I have done is I haven't defined output application type, or output application JSON. That's why it is giving error. Let me redeploy with the latest code. Okay, this is successfully started now. Let me run again. This time it will work for sure. I'll just show you like next. Now go inside for each. Now my payload value is 1 currently. Final payload is 0. Because it is still 1, it is not 11 because the blue dotted line is still on set payload. Now after executing this set payload, your value will change to 11. Next, set variable. Now you can see the final payload value is 11. Okay. Now my second value is 2. Then it will append plus 10 to it. Now it is 12. Okay. Now again, now my current, what we have set here, final vars dot final payload plus payload. What is the current value of vars dot final payload? It is 11 plus 12 you are adding, so it will append to the array. Now you see my final payload is 11, 12. Likewise for 13 it will happen like 13. Now you can see final payload value 11, 12, 13. Likewise for all the records there are no errors, so now it is 15. Next. Still at this point of time the set payload value is still 1 2 3 4 5 because we didn't execute this component yet. If we execute this component, what we have set this to vars dot final payload. What is vars dot final payload? It is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now after this blue dotted line is coming on to the logger, now you can see my payload value is 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Now my output is 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. This is how for each works. Now what I will try to do is I will keep instead of this 1 2 3, I will keep a here. I will pass the value a. and see how it behaves. Okay, that means A is a alphabet, and here it should fail when it is appending 10 to it. Okay, and what I am trying to explain is this one. Okay, if one record is failing in the process, then for each will stop processing the rest of the records. For example, if you have like array of 5, in our case array of 5, if first and two records are processing fine and the third record is failing, it will then fourth and fifth records will not be processed. See here again, next for each, next 11, which is fine. Okay, next 2, 12 is fine. Now you see my value is a plus 10 will fail because you cannot concat a string with a number. And see what is happening, it will not take the fourth and fifth record, it will stop. There is an error generated and then there it will stop. It is not processing 4 and 5 and you are getting an error, right? Clear? So to avoid that, if at all you want to process even fourth and fifth, what did I say? You can put the whole for each block in a try and on error continue block, and then it will try to execute the fourth and fifth record. So what I will do, I'll just go here, try block I will keep here. I'll put all these components within try block. So within for each I am keeping another try block. So you have to be very perfect with error handling concepts so that you will understand this. On error continue, propagate, if you keep, you know how it behaves, right? So I will keep like logger, and here I say like error occurred for payload value, and I will print the payload. So plus payload. Okay, now you see how it behaves. Okay, this is again advanced level of concept. They won't ask in certification exam, but good to know. And everything is running on a single thread, which means like only when the first record is when it goes inside for each, only after first record is processed successfully, it will go to the second record. Let us wait for this to get deployed, or if it is taking time, you can always right click, debug it again. So try and on error continue you are keeping because you just wanted to continue to the further records irrespective of the errors. Okay, and there is one more concept called parallel for each. I won't take much time on parallel for each because that is a new concept, and probably it might not be covered in our MCD level 1 certification exam. But the difference, while it is getting deployed, I will tell you the difference between for each and parallel for each. For each, I told you that each record is processed individually, and second record will process only when the first record is processed completely. Means it will wait for the first record to complete and then only second record will go, likewise the next record. But parallel for each is something like scatter gather. All the records, the 5 records will run individually, parallelly, one by one. All right, one by one it will run individually irrespective of any other records. So any failure of any record will not affect the processing of another record. Okay, that is the difference between parallel for each. In that case we don't need this try and on error continue. Okay, now it is deployed. Send the request. You see the one. Okay, payload 1 plus 10. You observe my debugger and see the values how they are changing. Okay, now it is A. There is an error occurred. It is on error continue. It will go to the logger. Now you can see my fourth value is getting processed, right? 10 plus 4, 14. And in the logger you can see error occurred for the payload value A. Okay, now rest of the values are getting processed. Now last value will be like 55. 5 plus 10 is 15. Okay, now it will come out and see only 11, 12, 14, 15. Okay, 11, 12, 14, 15, A is not processed. This is how for each works. Now quickly I will show parallel for each. I won't go into deep. Okay, for parallel for each, drag and drop. Now I will put whatever connectors are there within for each, I will keep it in parallel for each, and I will delete this. Okay, that is not required. In debugger we won't be able to see much in the debugger mode because parallel for each runs individually parallelly, so probably like you won't be able to try to see how it works because it will like go here and there because it is like parallel, but try to understand that each of them will run individually. Even if there is an error occurred, doesn't matter, it will not give any, it will not stop processing the other records. Okay, my application has started. Let's see how parallel, nothing I have done. Okay, parallel for which I just dragged and dropped. You can see collection same like this collection. If I'm not writing anything, I told you like by default it will take payload. Now you see parallel for each, it will go inside, it will go inside, it will go inside, it will go inside, it will go inside. I told you, right, it will run like debugger we cannot see, and you can see there is a error that occurred when we are trying to put a plus 10, but doesn't care, doesn't matter. Okay, so okay, payload 10, it will give the values, but this is how it behaves. Okay, parallel for each will run, it will try to process all the records. Got it? It's very simple, and yep, that is all. And what it is saying is target value. Here if you try to mention any value, for example final payload, if you give this final payload as the value, so all that you need, that's why it is giving like error here instead of giving the actual payload. In the target, if you name this as final payload, let's see how it behaves. Okay, it successfully started. Let me send the request. I will just keep the debugger point here. Okay, and just resume it. Okay, this is coming, but ignore that. Don't think much about parallel for each for now, but the behavior of parallel for each is it will run individually without considering whether the previous object or the other objects are failing or not. This is about for each and parallel for each, but concentrate more on for each component for examination point of view. All right, now next connector and the final connector for developing APIs is batch processing. This is also really important in terms of certification exam, also in the real time cases. Whenever there is a requirement for you to update like thousands or millions of records, then we will go with batch processing. Batch processing is nothing but, so Mule has this special feature allowing us to process messages in batch within the application. So in the batch scope, what it will do, it will splits the messages into individual records, performs actions upon each record, and then reports on the result. This is how it looks. Okay, this is how it looks. And when we will use batch and for each and batch looks like similar, like even for each is to process 100 records or 1000 records. The only difference between for each and batch is, for each is like if you are expecting some response from the end system. For example, you are updating the data, you are selecting the data from database and updating it to Salesforce. So here we need the output of database here, right? Whenever you are expecting some kind of output in return, then we will go with for each loop. Batch is something like upsert statement in Salesforce. You don't need the result of Salesforce. You are just updating or upserting the records. You don't want any kind of response, so that you will go further and do any processing. In such kind of scenarios, we will go with batch job. So this is typical to understand for the, like when you hear it for the first time, but I'll try to show in the hands-on. So try to do some hands-on so that you will understand the process here. So again, things to remember for batch processing: these are used to asynchronously process larger than memory data sets that are split into individual records, and it is multi-threaded, which means it is just like a parallel for each, which will run individually. Okay, any error occurs, doesn't matter, it will process all the records. And this is really important for certification point of view. The output in the on-complete phase is always the statistics of the result of after batch processing. It will not give any payload value or something like that. It will give only statistics, which tells you, statistics means it will tell you, if suppose you have 10 records, it will tell you, okay, 5 records are successful, 10 records are successful, or 5 records are failed, something like that. Okay, it will process all the records irrespective of errors occurred at individual record. This is also very important, right? So it will look like this. Okay, batch, the input will come here. Okay, the input of batch step 1 is always the payload value that is there just before this one. In this case, it is transfer message payload. Now what it will do, it will go inside batch step 1. Okay, then it will process whatever is there. Okay, then it will go to batch aggregator place. Okay, whatever value you specify in batch aggregator, it will take those. Like for example, if you are keeping batch aggregator value as 2, then this insert statement will run like 2 with 2 records, and then it will go inside the batch aggregator. Again, the remaining records 1, 2, it will process, and then it will go to batch aggregator. Now if you have another batch step, the input for batch steps 2 is always the input for batch output of the batch step 1. It is not the output of transfer message. Batch steps 2 input is always batch step 1. Okay, next it will do the same processing. Okay, and when everything, all the batches are done, then it will go to on complete phase, and the payload value of on complete phase is always the statistics. Okay, let's do some hands on. Okay, what I will try to do is, I have already defined this, but let's do this. Okay, http, I will delete everything again here. Okay, let me delete so that it will be easier for you to understand. You can do along with me. Okay, batch. So search for batch here, and you have to drag and drop batch job first into this place. If you are dragging and dropping batch step, if you try to drag and drop batch step, it will not allow. If you drag and drop batch aggregator, it will not allow, because all this batch aggregator and batch step should be within batch job. Okay, when you drag and drop batch job, there are two phases. One phase is process records phase, the another phase is on complete phase. Process record phase is where you will get actual processing, where you will do actual processing. On complete phase will show you like after completing what are the statistics and all right. By default, there is a batch step already provided here when you drag and drop batch step. If you want to drag and drop another batch step, you can always keep here this batch step. I will delete this batch step for now. Let's keep only one batch step and see how it behaves, and you will understand the concept. All right. So now what I will keep, set payload same. Okay, I will drag and drop. So before dragging and dropping set payloads or whatever it is, okay, batch job, here you can see you are defining some maximum failed records as 0, which means any error it will not try to it will not allow, means you are allowing only 0 errors. But if there are any errors, then you have to at least give some value, right? For now I am like giving like, okay, max fail records are like 2. Let me put 2 for now. Okay, next in batch step, the configuration for batch step is you are accepting no failures, means any kind of failures. For the first batch step it is fine, but I will show you this accept policy, right? Whatever is there, you will understand that if I keep batch step 2 here. Okay, for now I will drag and drop set payload, just like for each whatever we have done earlier. In the for each we will do the same processing. Okay, payload plus 10. Okay, payload plus 10. Then Aggregator, there is a phase called aggregator here. Again, you cannot keep any connector, like for example logger, and if you drag and drop, it is not allowing to keep, because you have to keep batch aggregator, and then only you can keep components. Batch aggregator, and it is asking for the size. Okay, if you keep size 2, I will show you what will happen. And you can just keep logger, drag and drop here, and try to print the payload. The reason why I am debugging the application is, it is very important to, because for certification point of view, they will ask what is the payload value at the point of on complete phase, what is the payload value at this batch aggregator. So you should be able to understand. You will understand only when you are debugging the stuff. Okay, let me put a breakpoint here. Let me debug the application. I will just send the payload same, like 1 2 3. First let me send 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, this is batch, I think. Okay, we will see how it is processed. It is typical to understand, but if you once you do hands-on, you will understand. So what I am trying to do, I will get a series of records. Again, batch is asynchronous, parallel. So whenever I am doing this debugging, again you might not see it properly. That's the reason I am keeping loggers, so that you will understand how it behaves. Okay, which means what I am trying to say is 1 2 3 4 5 runs parallelly. It is multi-threaded. All the 5 records will run parallelly and do this process. Like it will try to like 1 plus 10 11. So how it happens is, first, as I gave like batch aggregator is 2 here, what it will do is, it will process 2 records, like first 2 1 and 2, which will be like 10 11 and 12 now. After 11 and 12, it will go to batch aggregator and print 11 and 12. Next, come back again, there are like 2 more records left, 3 comma 4. Okay, then it will print here 13 comma 14, and then only one record is left. So last 15 5 plus 10 15, and then 15 will print here. And in examination questions also, they will ask like what is the value at this step, you know, is it like 1 2 3 4 5 or 10 11 12 13 14 15, how it will be printed. Okay, let me show you that in the hands-on. Okay, this is deployed. Then run the application. Oops, it is not in the breakpoint here. Okay, see the payload. Now my payload value is 1. Okay, 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. The first value is 1. Okay, next value is 2. Okay, now 1 and 2. Now it will go to logger and see the values of payload now 11 and 12, because this is because the batch aggregator value size is 2, it will go as a collection of 2. Okay, in the certification point of view, they will ask how are the loggers displayed, or you know, printed. Now next 3 and 4. Now it will go to batch aggregator because 2 records are processed. Now it is 13 and 14, and go next. Then only like fifth record is present, so it will not wait for the second record, because batch aggregator, you might be thinking batch aggregator is size is 2 and we need one more record. No, what are the leftover records, it will go here. That's why here you can see only 15. Okay, now next, one of the compulsory asked question is, what is the payload value at on complete phase? Okay, I told you the payload value is always the statistics. Okay, you can see here payload value, you can see it is immutable batch job result, the type itself. If you go to x plus y and click type of payload, it says object. Okay, and it gives all the values. So it is, can you see here how many records are processed? 5. How many of them are successful? 5. How many total records? 5. How many failure records? 0. These are all statistics. One more thing, I told you, right, they will ask in the certification how the payload is printed and all. So where is this 11, 10, 11, 12? Anyways, so resume. Okay, this is how it works basically. Okay, it should show somewhere the values of logger. I don't see it. All right, now what if I am passing 1 2 3 4 5 6? Okay, it will go in another batch like next. So observe 1, next 2, next it will go here 11 and 12, likewise next 3 and 4, 13 and 14, next 5 and 6, 15 and 16. Okay, 15 and 16. Somehow I need to put like some JSON or write string because it is not printing, but usually in the certification exam they will give like, so you have to give like 10 11, sorry 11 12, 13 14, 15 16, something like that. Okay, and then statistics will be displayed over here. Okay, you can see here, finished execution of the instance, how many successful records, how many failure records, and all are printed over here. Now what if I am giving a dummy value like a here so that it will fail? Go next. Okay, 1 2 11 and 12, 3, again a, this will fail because there is an error, then 5, next 6, can you see here, 13 and 15. Okay, so this batch aggregator we kept size 2. You must be thinking, okay, 1 to 1 size, so 11 and 12, 13 and 14. 14 is failing because it is a, and you will think only 3 is going. Okay, batch aggregator will always collect only 2 successful records. That's the reason the next one is 13 and 15. All right, next 14 and 16, and it will come out. Okay, it will not pick up the failure records. Got it? That is how batch jobs behave. Got it? Clear? So this is how it comes, but I don't know why it is not printing. But let me do one thing. Write off. So let me put this logger, same logger here, so that it is better to this. So I'll say like batch. Okay, let me save it again, let me run it and see how it works, because it will be easier for you to see the values how they are printed. Can you see here again in the statistics it says like 1 record failed and 5 records successful. I'll show you that again here, because these questions will be like very tricky when it comes to certification exam. So try to do more hands-on to get habituated to this stuff. So next. Okay, so here next. Okay, it is failing because we are doing like plus. Let me do one thing. I can try to print payload. Okay, write payload comma application JSON, print it. Okay, so let me do one thing. I will keep only this part. So fail. Let me put everything here. Okay, this way it will be easy for us. See here also, like it was showing like failed records are like 4, something like that, right? This time we won't have any errors. See, we all try to do something and you will get errors, then only we will learn, okay, this is not correct, and we can correct them. Okay, now you see next 2 records are processed, So the payload value current is 1112. We are printing the logger. If you go to the console and see, we are printing 11 and 12. So in the examination question, they will ask like how it will print 11 and 12. Next 13 failing. Next is 13 and 15, because record 4th 3 a plus 10 won't work. 13 and 15, and you can see console, next it is printing 13 and 15, and likewise next, okay, and resume. Okay, in examination point of view, so here you can see statistics: successful records are 5, total processed records are 6, failure records are 1. And in certification exam they might be showing you like how it prints. So you have to say like 11 12, next 13 15, and next is 16. Okay, this is how it works, batch jobs behaves. All right, so that is all for developing APIs. This is the last session, guys. So whatever I have tried to stress few points, please try to do hands-on, and then you can easily crack the certification exam. Then I think the last there is one more last session that is left, is deploying the applications into Cloud Hub and how to apply policies. We will be seeing in the comment section, and we will be done with this week's, and that's all will be for your MuleSoft for Salesforce developer sessions. We have one more session to complete. Please follow us on Apex servers and all social media platforms, and also on MuleSoft-TechZone channel. And yep, we will see in our final session, that is deploying applications and applying policies. Hope you like this session. Please don't forget to try to do hands-on, and see you in the next session.